Welcome to Beyond the Competition, the SAE University Programs Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Mike Sorg, the podcast and media producer for the SAE University Programs, ready to talk with you about everything going on online that maybe you don't know about here with the university programs and expanding out what else SAE International offers for everybody out there. We do have with us, he is also my co-host here and one of the co-hosts of the CDS Action News, and maybe you've seen him out on competitions interviewing the students and the sponsors. Scott Schultz is with us.
What's up, everyone?
How you doing, Scott?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good. You're doing just as good as last month?
Yeah, maybe even better.
Maybe even better.
Oh my gosh, so much happened since our last recording.
So much happened. We've been so many places, obviously, and we had a great show last month. Well, we got a great show this month for you as well.
We do.
And we do have with us Matt Wasowski, the producer of online events with SAE International. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. I mean, that guarantees for a great show.
Absolutely.
Now, Matt, before we get started, I work with you, but I've never talked to you before. So how are you? How's everything going?
That's a strange observation, but I guess probably accurate.
Yeah,
you know,
we only chatted or
Yeah.
like texted.
Right. That is, that's the beauty of the internet these days. I don't know, or functional remote work. You look very comfortable. I am not a fan of the attire that you're wearing right now. As a diehard Cleveland Cavaliers fanatic,
Okay.
so I will only judge you negatively from now on.
Okay. Well,
for
the
the-
Cavs are doing pretty great this season.
Yeah,
We're gonna have a real battle in the East, you and I think.
For audio, Scott is wearing a Boston Celtics
Yeah.
attire.
Yeah, and that Celtics, the Celtics documentary, whew, something.
They do, yeah. Well, oh man, I'm excited now that I'm just gonna message you about some basketball. So keep an eye out for that.
There you go. I love that this show has become, because we had Emma on here a few episodes ago with AWIM, and this just becomes Scott's like get to know his coworkers a series as well. So
isn't that the subtitle? I believe.
Yeah.
Scott's just
Well,
like,
you're also not in Morrendale, right?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I'm meeting all these people that I wouldn't see in the office, which is pretty exciting.
oh,
So I
That's
like to
cool.
start with a let's get weird question. So are you ready to get weird?
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess this is also not that weird, but how happy are you that Pixar decided to go with Mike Wazowski and not Matt Wasowski?
Marginally, because either way, that movie has really ruined our family's life in a lot of ways. So as far as until that movie came out, we had known of like 9 to 11 Wazowskis in the world, period. Like literally there's myself, my cousin Aaron, my father, my sister, and my uncle Mike. And I think my dad's cousin, Father Ron, which is confusing, but he was a minister. So I guess that's 7 Wazowskis. So somehow they chose this name. As an adult, I do not go see animated movies. I, for some reason, saw that movie in the theater and did not know what was about to happen. The name Mike Wasowski came out of John Goodman's character's mouth. It was very confusing. I was startled. And then the name was said, subsequently 80 more times in the movie, which is also weird because if you think about it, in any movie, TV show, any property of any kind, no one says a character's full name. Maybe once as an introduction, but I would never say Scott Schultz repeatedly in a 90-minute thing. So the fact that becomes the running joke is fascinating. And then obviously my uncle Mike did not know that was happening. And so to this day, even when people do not make phone calls, as we've established now, he still gets innumerable crank calls every day. And you can imagine what they are like when you've got a one-eyed monster. So Thanks, Pixar.
Wow. Somebody's not going to Disneyland.
Right. So so as a sidebar, since we're getting weird,
Yeah.
I've been with the SAE International family of organizations for about 4.5 years now. Before then, I worked for 6 or 7 years organizing several of the largest Comic Cons in the world, most notably New York Comic Con, which is the third largest ticketed event in the country every year, only behind the US Open and Indy 500. So obviously we got to know the folks at Disney and Pixar quite well, and that was always just a side point of contention. That
Did you give them
I
a little
was
bit of attitude?
just, just a little bit.
You
Or,
gave them like the worst spot on the floor.
we didn't give them the best.
That's fantastic. I've actually got to attend New York Comic Con once, and it was a fantastic experience.
I hope you wore your finest cosplay.
Oh no. Anyways, well, let's get into it. Like say you're doing online events. And again, I kind of asked this question beforehand and everything. Like, what do we mean by online events? What are these kinds of events that we're talking about here?
Sure. So, in this world, in the post-COVID world and during the COVID world, things like New York Comic Con were very, very hard to hold for a number of years, where you didn't want, thousands to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of your best friends and colleagues standing shoulder to shoulder in a room with a virus floating around. So, and it's kind of weird to think because I think online events have become part of everyone's daily lives over the last couple of years, but really until 2021 or 2022 that really wasn't actually the case. I was brought in to SAE in the fall of the pandemic. I started in September 2020 when it was clear that online events were not going to be coming back in earnest for, at that point, nobody knew. It could have been 6 months, it could have been 5 years. Nobody really knew what what was on the horizon. So we decided that by creating this program, it would sort of kill two birds with one stone. One, it would allow for SAE to just start to kind of renew its events, which had been obviously, had been dormant since February of 2020, right before lockdown started. But then also it was very sort of important inflection moment in time for SAE where software and tech was really coming into prominence at the point. Obviously, I mean, had been for several years, but SAE, we're a venerable organization. We've been around since Henry Ford and Orville Wright, and there are frankly a lot of new emerging companies that were not aware of SAE or didn't know how to interact with us, didn't know if ways to engage, and so by transitioning events in that pace from the purely physical in-person environment to online, it actually was a means of allowing SAE to start to do more real outreach with technology companies, with software companies, with Silicon Valley, with organizations in London, Berlin, Shanghai, whatever the case might be, so that SAE could be a little bit more forward-thinking and associated with many of the new tech companies that are now intertwined with the mobility transportation industry.
And how frequently does SAE host virtual events?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty aggressive calendar that we have. Usually every 3 to 6 weeks, we've got an event going on. And I guess I should explain what we kind of mean in this case by virtual events. So SAE, for the folks who know SAE well, our in-person events are, for the most part, very specialized and very technical. WCX has a couple hundred folks presenting tech papers that are just so into the weeds that sometimes even engineers are very impressed with the other engineers. I am a professional event producer. I am not an engineer in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's sort of important and kind of reflected in the events that the online program puts on. The online events usually consist of 3.5 to 5.5 hours of programming a day. Most events are just 1 or 2 days long. We certainly are realistic and do not expect a attendee to sit at their computer for 8 to 10 hours like you would an in-person event to learn your content. And we also make sure that all the sessions are at most half an hour long. Again, online attention spans. It's hard to have someone sitting at their computer or on their phone engaging in something for longer than that. We stay away from 60 or 90 or 120-minute long sessions like you might engage or might have an in-person event. So we typically have in a given day 8 to 12, 10 to 12 sessions on a given day, 1 to 2 days per event. And they're always usually at somewhere like the 15,000 foot level where we'll get into the weeds just enough to keep our engineer core happy. But also, we really try to keep these appropriate for sort of middle and upper management as well. And so it's trying to find that sweet spot that sort of can address a larger, broader audience, so that a tech executive at a software company working on AI for computers or for cars can really kind of be in parity with the engineer who's actually working and developing that AI at the same time. So it's kind of that sweet spot we're trying to find.
So, what are the key topics that these virtual events are typically covering?
Sure. So the topics that's actually one that it's arguably the key asset of the online event model is that the topics can be as contemporary as they need to be. So an example, earlier in 2025, we had an event about North American EV charging infrastructure, and the event was literally 2 weeks after the new administration took over in Washington. And so there are a lot of changes happening, a lot of executive orders happening, and we had booked in that event as the sort of kickoff presentation was by a person who for years worked in the Biden administration for the Department of Transportation and helped lead a lot of the legislation for the NEVI Act as part of the Build Back Better and Infrastructure Act. And so obviously, that person's job was not the same in early February as it had been a couple weeks earlier with the change administration. But because it was online, the person was still able to present and talk about just some of the changes that the new administration had enacted within a couple of weeks. And so the fact that we were able to hold like literally a real time discussion. And in fact, the next day, as we were talking about some of the funding for these federal programs, there are some orders that changed the funding, and we were able to have a person later, literally then at the second day of the event, talk about what the new changes in policy meant. So the fact that we're able to kind of keep up with events in real time, with policy in real time, with technology in real time, with changes in real time, it kind of gives us a nice little advantage to the market where a lot of the information the folks are getting is as contemporary and helpful as possible.
How do you select and source speakers for these events?
That is by far my favorite part of my job. So what I sort of pride myself on, and I've been a professional producer and for nearly 25 to 30 years, and my career has almost been made of becoming a subject matter expert as quickly as possible and giving people a platform. So my the vast majority of my job is to research markets as thoroughly and quickly as possible, to learn enough to become dangerous. So all of our speakers are sourced literally by it's hand-to-hand combat, hand-to-hand invitations. I do 100% of the outreach, but it's done really through the network of SAE. And that's the other really fun part of my job is that inherently my job at SAE is to know what all the other folks and all the other departments are doing at all times to make sure that every single corner of SAE, PRI, ITC, SAE Media Group are all being represented, and frankly, to know who the experts are within our own organization who can lend a hand. So, for example, we did an event back in March of 2025 about automating connected vehicles, talking about AI, new software, whatever the case might be, in both aerospace and automotive, and that allows me to reach out to folks at ITC, to various standards committee heads at SAE International, and to as well as to the editors at SAE of our journals and publications, and say, and approach them as well as approach the editors of the SAE Media Group publications say, hey, you're all out there in the field every day. You're talking to the experts in this field. Anyone you recommend? Then doing my own market research, looking at the latest trends, literally going into articles, finding people who are doing interesting work, reaching out to them firsthand. So I do a lot of research and then just a lot of talking to people, a lot of asking people who they know, if they recommend anyone. We have a vast, huge, incredibly impressive network at SAE. And so it's my job to take advantage of that network and leverage it and all the expertise that lies within that network.
As we said, I work with you on some of these events, and it's sometimes in the when I'm waiting to let them go live, I always think, how does he find these people? Because they're from all over the world coming in to present. And I always think, I like, it just blows my mind how you find these people. So it's very interesting to hear how you get them.
It's a very inexact science, but thank you. I appreciate it. Honestly, like that it's by far my favorite part of the job, and kind of, I mean, I frankly have to, I sort of, I guess, pride myself on it, which sounds really annoying to say out loud, but it's that's the job. It has to be finding the right people, because at the end of the day, no one's gonna attend an event that doesn't have the right speakers or the right names at it. So that's the key to driving attendance, is having the right folks in front of them who can deliver the content that they need or want to hear.
These sound like pretty major events, obviously with these experts and everything. Does it cost anything for people to attend these events?
No, so that's, frankly, that's the advantage of these events, is that they're free to attend, they're free to present at. So I will say, it makes my job as a is from the person who sourcing speakers. It's a pretty decent, it's pretty easy ask, which is certainly an advantage I can play up. I mean, you approach someone and say, hey, we've got an audience of hundreds or thousands waiting for you. Do you want to present for half an hour about your expertise? Most people got egos. They're going to say yes to that. So, it's a fun job in my hand. It's a fun job on my part, where usually I'm going to get like a 90% yes rate, or success rate when I'm doing the outreach there. So I'm always happy about that. But the free event helps with the attendance. Obviously, and this is something that we did kind of play around with a little bit in the early days of this program, is that the free model isn't always great for attendance. If I sign up for something for free, it is way easier for me to blow it off. And I'm sure you both feel the same, whether it's online, in person. If you don't have any skin in the game, it's gonna fall way, way down the priority list. So in the beginning, we even experimented with literally charging like $5 an attendee, and it didn't become the right model. But fortunately, what we kind of found is that, and coming back to what we were just discussing, is that if it's the right content, people are going to attend anyway. So something that we've been really proud of over the last few years is that industry standard for a free online event is that you'll get 25 to 28% of registrants actually attending the live event. So literally a quarter of folks who typically sign up for a free online event will attend. Our events typically get 45 to 65% of registrants attending, which is literally 2 to 3 times the average sort of industry standard. So I think it just goes back to value, to go back to picking the right presenters. Again, content is king, as they say. And so if you're delivering the right content, it's still going to have value.
Is it? Do you find it easier to get people to be speakers because they don't have to get on a plane and go somewhere around the world?
100%. And this, and that's, and I say this all the time. And it's the, I lived in New York for 25 years. I have a cold, dead New Yorker's East Coast heart. There's no joy in the world, and I still get a genuine kick out of the fact that at these events, we'll typically have, so say we have 20 presenters at a given event. More than half of them are going to be from a different time zone. Typically, which obviously, when you don't have to ask someone to travel across the state, across the country, across the world to present an event, it's great to break down barriers, saving on carbon footprints, things like that. Certainly a feather in the cap. But then, at the end of the day, a typical event of ours, I mean, there are 24 time zones in the world. We get folks from usually 16 to 18 of them. And it's just kind of a cool, weird, dorky thing to have someone logged in from 37 to 50 states at a time, along with folks from Brazil and India and Germany and South Korea and wherever the case might be. it's not lost on us. It's kind of a nice way to really sort of shrink the world a couple days at a time.
Isn't that kind of fascinating? You went from one world of super uber geekery with the Comic Cons, and now you're kind of in another version of that with these kinds of programs, right? Because like engineers are kind of like the ultimate geeks, right?
That is 100% true, and that's something that I've always said is that I you know I'll try to not to go on my geek nerd high horse here, but everyone is passionate about something much more
Mhm.
so. I mean, you could be passionate about what something as stereotypical as Star Wars or Star Trek, or about engineering AI to make your car drive better. But you can be equally passionate about what seasonings best go onto a hot dog, or how do two versus two in writing, whatever. I don't know. Everyone is nerdy in particular about something, and the fact that we can bring these sort of nerdy particular communities that are very passionate about their work together. I mean, that's ultimately I people's passion and enthusiasm helps spark and breed passion and enthusiasm in others, and that's what we're trying to do here at these events here at SAE.
What are you most passionate or nerdy about?
This is the worst answer I could possibly give. Actually, well, so I have two. I have two, and they're diametrically opposed. Which also wearing your Boston Celtics shirt, you may get a kick out of. So, number one, I am generally most nerdy and enthusiastic about other people's nerdum and enthusiasm. And one of the other reasons that I came to SAE in the first place is that for 22 years now, on my own time, I run an organization called Nite, which is the second largest presentation series in the world behind TED Talks. We hold monthly events in person at over 100 cities globally, in which three presenters who are experts in various topics give 20-minute presentations about whatever it is they know a lot about. And it's so as sticking with my career of giving people platform to present about very specific things, that is in part with it. So I just always find people's particular knowledge and enthusiasm be sort of inspiring and fascinating and interesting. With the segue, because I am personally, I've just been a diehard sports nerd my entire life, and I know that most nerdum does not jive with sports nerdum. But I always try to explain that if you ask Tom Brady, but well, not anymore, but what play you should run on a 3rd and 7, from your own 42 against a cover 2 defense, he'll say you run a jet C rocket go on 3, and no rocket scientist or traditional nerd would actually know what that means. So ergo, Tom Brady is arguably a giant nerd himself. Despite the fact that he was a professional jock and has dimples. So, so if you can combine my sports nerdery with my passion for understanding other people's detailed nerdery, I think it makes for a good life here at SAE.
It does. Also, you never think about how you can literally be a nerd about anything ever, which makes life so crazy.
Yeah. So I think that so we always try. I like the broader inclusive word of nerd. It's nicer that way.
And back to these virtual presentations, are they or virtual events? Are they available to anyone or just SAE members?
Yeah, so that's again. So I guess going back way back to the original one of the original goals of this program is to allow SAE to sort of extend its tentacles and start to work with companies that were always on the periphery of our ecosystem. That's really the impetus with the audience as well. So because they're free, these are 100% open to the public, and it's actually been working really well. A typical event that we do, a typical online event at SAE, tends to end up getting about reaching 50 to 60% of people that are outside of our database, our membership list. So it is continually successfully reaching a very new audience for us, which is just important for the industry to help. As a professional convener at SAE, we want folks to kind of get together and make new connections, and so we think we're doing that with allowing existing members to reach folks outside of our traditional ecosystem.
And how can everybody outside of SAE hear about, find these events to register?
They just have to go to sae.org/attend. We've got events already, already listed out through the entire year. And of course, check out SAE International on social media, LinkedIn in particular, and our crack publicity and marketing staff are doing wonderful things to talk about the upcoming events. And most importantly, one thing that we are working on is that going back to the idea of content as a typical event, typical online event, it's what 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. That's a lot of content. We're still doing our best trying to figure out ways to make the recordings more presentable and more digestible. We've literally now have hundreds of hours of content. That's a lot of information, a lot of good stuff, and we are always trying to find ways to tweak that and show sound bites and whatever the case might be, just to make sure that folks who might have missed the live stuff are seeing it repurposed as well.
We know, obviously you have experience with live streaming and live events and podcasts and all those kinds of things and very similar kind of events, but not as big, sure, for sure. But what is the toughest part about managing these massive virtual events that you're putting together?
Yeah, it's knowing which tab to look at a given second. Yeah, I mean, so
it's relatable.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, during an event, I think I have 5 different tabs open within a browser. I've got Teams open often to talk with Scott or other colleagues that I have logged in producing another stage. I've got 2 phone apps open to make sure things are working on the phone correctly. So there's I've got have an Excel spreadsheet for each event, just with some basic information of each session that I'm comparing and contrasting with what's happening real time in the browser. So I usually have 12 to 15 different things I'm looking at in real time simultaneously. And so it's just trying to make sure that I'm paying attention, and then, different things going off. You're trying to make sure you find the right thing. So, just trying to, just doing the work.
There's a very cool and heavy command center feeling when you do one of these events, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm doing real work that I should be sitting behind behind the desk at ABC or ESPN or something. Except that I'm sitting in a 10 by 10 spare bedroom.
Exactly.
By myself with my cat and hopefully staying out of the litter box, right?
Of course, you've done these for a little bit here. Was there what's the biggest kind of surprise you've had from this? Is there any either reaction or something that's happened live that kind of was a pleasant, kind of, caught you off guard in a good way?
Yeah, there was a specific one about in late 2023, and I guess it took a while, but it was a good proof of concept where I'm sure you've heard this as well. The typical complaint of online events is that it just doesn't feel like you're there. You can't make connections. You can't run into somebody and strike up a casual conversation. You can't have that sort of informal interaction. And the platform that we use for our events, it has a networking feature. It's sort of like, I don't know, speed dating is probably the best analogous now comparison, where you get a list, you see all the participants who are there at a given time, logged in at that moment. You can click on a name and start a spontaneous 3-minute video audio call with anyone who's there. And the first time we opened it up, literally 85% of the folks participated in that. And I got a number of unsolicited emails from attendees saying, oh, if that was more valuable than some of the sessions, I got to meet a number of people, and a couple of folks got jobs out of it. And so the fact that there was a tangible response to the informal piece of the event that helped people further their careers, that was it.
I know that's been a lot of conversations. We've seen a lot of these hybrid events where people are trying to convert their live events into something like what you're trying to do as well. And there's always a disconnect between those audiences, right? Or a missing component or something, or one is not treated as heavily, as the other one. They just put a camera in the room and there's just a big detachment. You don't feel like you're a part of it. And it's really cool that you focus in, it seems, on that audience getting a very specific thing out of it. And I'm glad to hear this is a great use case of that virtual hallway, if you will, happening for the networking.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's about being realistic. you know that it's I as the person whose baby program this is, I am 100% aware that it's not going to feel the same as an in-person event. So just make sure that you're aware of your circumstances and you play to the strengths that you can. And again, I mean, it's some simple best practices. Again, going back to the sessions, keep them short, keep the day a little bit shorter. You're not trying to do a one-to-one replication of an in-person event. That would be ludicrous and just be a terrible idea. So just understand the strengths, understand the differences, and play to the best advantages that you can. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard, but I think it has been for some other organizations. So just, play to your strengths.
Obviously, we talked a lot about these events. They sound like really cool events here for what the SAE is putting on here virtually. But I want to go back to your past that you mentioned because I'm very excited about this. So is there any kind of what's the wildest situation that you're allowed to tell us from your days with New York Comic Con that you've had to deal with? Any wild stories you want to share with that about your experiences?
Oh, I've got thousands of them. All right. So my favorite one, and I think all right, and I'm gonna name drop, which I'm loath to do, but it makes it adds, it'll add a certain flavor to it. So working an event like New York Comic Con, I mean, you're on site for 18 hours a day for 5 or 6 days before the event even begins, and it's a 4-day event from Thursday through a Sunday. So you typically get there on Saturday or Sunday beforehand, and you're just doing setup, tech checks, everything you can imagine. So my job for at several of these was that as the convention started to expand to other venues beyond the Javits Center, which was the main convention where it's held, we expanded into Madison Square Garden, some other larger theaters to just to keep growing. So I was in charge of managing a 2,000 seat theater called the Hammerstein Ballroom, where we did a bunch of where we did all of our TV entertainment for the event, and then we did a bunch of separately ticketed nighttime events. One year, in short, we had Mark Hamill, who some of you may have heard of, do a one-man show, and the show is literally him on stage by himself for an hour and a half, just talking about what it's like to be Mark Hamill. As you can imagine, an event like that sells out in ones of seconds, and goes great. So throughout the process, with most of these events, you're always dealing with people's handlers and managers and other people, and a few times are you actually meeting the people or working with them ahead of time for coordination. So as with any event, his advance team shows up about 3 hours before the show. We already know the particulars of it. We're just going over some last minute run throughs, and we go through a run through. It's about half an hour before showtime, and we still haven't met Mark yet. And I realized that I've got one question about just how he's going to get onto stage. So I go to the green room, knock on the door to talk to his team. Voice says, "Come in." I open the door, and it's just Mark Hamill on his couch by himself. No one else that we've been working with there. And I'm like, "Well, the question is about you. I am a professional and an adult. I will ask him the question myself." So I walk up to him. I extend my hand. I'm a fully functioning working adult. I say, "Hey, Luke. My name's Matt. It's nice to meet you."
Luke.
It 100% just slipped out. I didn't feel, he was gracious about it after a few seconds. I got a look. I apologized. I said, "Hey, just quick question about your show." We got over it. Fast forward half an hour, the show's starting. I literally have to walk him up 3 stairs onto the stage. We get to the second of the 3 stairs. He grabs my arm and he's just like, "Matt, I've got a question. I know I've got 90 minutes. I've got a hard stop, but do you think if I went for an hour and for 15 minutes longer, do you think the people would mind?" And I was like, "Dude, these people literally paid hundreds of dollars to see you. If you talk for 15 extra minutes, I think it's fine." They're like, "All right, can you just put 1:45 onto my clock?" I'm like, "Sure." So again, headset, I call up to the booth. I'm like, "Hey, there's a little monitor on booth that's countdown clock from 90 minutes. So we change it to 105 minutes. We're like, "All right, set. Good luck. Have a good show." He goes on stage. After 105 minutes, he's not done. After 2 hours, he's not done. After 2.5 hours, he's not done. After 3 hours, he's not done. After 3.5 hours, he's not done. We've been up for 18 hours for 6 straight days. It is now getting into 1:30 in the morning at a 8:30 start of a show. Finally, he ends. Not a single person has left the theater after 4 hours. He then has to sign 30 autographs for people in the front row who paid extra money for that. So because I introduced, or because I take it personally, it's my fault because I said, "Nice to meet you, Luke," instead of Mark, that he decided to go 3 hours long. And how dare he give his diehard fans what they came for.
I like the confidence you're going with. Hey, Luke.
So, Mark, if you're listening to this, which you obviously are, I still apologize. It was a genuine accident. I'm glad you entertained 2,000 people, had them eating out of your palm of your hand for 4 hours. You're a consummate professional. Thank you for all you do.
We know Mark Hamill is definitely a big automotive engineering fan. So.
He's,
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here, Matt. This has been a delightful conversation here, and hopefully you'll get an opportunity to run into you out west here for these competitions and everything with SAE.
Yeah, and I will definitely say hi, Luke. It's nice to meet you as well when we finally meet.
Absolutely.
Do you ever come out to the CDS events?
No.
Okay. Because I know we have an Aero out there, and
that's right. Aero's in your backyard, or has it been in your backyard, depending on when people are listening to this.
I was supposed to go out to the desert this past spring for I think it was for one of the the US Baja event in Arizona, but I ended up having a personal conflict that prevented me from going. So if my scheduling works out, I will try to be there because they seem super fun.
There you go. No, absolutely.
No pressure.
Thank you so much. For those, just a reminder, where can people find out more about these virtual events, everything coming up?
Yeah, SAE.org/attend, all the virtual events, all the in-person events you could shake a stick at. Find us in person or online, SAE.org/attend.
That's right. Let's get our virtual sticks to shake at them and go check those out. Thank you so much. And again, a reminder, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast on your podcast provider of your choice, which should be on about every program. And if we're not, hit us up about it. And we'll make sure that that's on there. There's a lot of them popping up all the time. And of course, make sure you download your app for your respective competitions. There's ones out there in the iPhone and the Android stores for Formula, Aero Design, and Baja. So you can get all of your updates there, and of course all their respective websites there, starting at sae.org. I think /attend, I think, has all the CDS university programs events as well, right? So from that, and stay tuned, because of course Scott will be providing you the news every month here during the season for the CDS Action News with his buddy Mike there, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun recording that show.
Too much fun
that we literally can't put on the internet sometimes. So,
but you go to our Patreon. And
we don't have a Patreon. We don't have a Patreon yet. I don't know.
Go to our Patreon.
Is that how we're supporting a university programs with Patreon now?
Go to our Patreon. You can see our unedited.
There you go.
Footage.
Sure, we'll see what happens. Asterisk, there is no Patreon yet. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Until next time, stay safe out there. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Competition, the SAE University Programs podcast. Show notes for this episode can be found at beyondthecompetition.fireside.fm. Remember, stay tuned for updates on your competition's news feed or app, and follow SAE_university programs on TikTok and Instagram. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next episode.